Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's Knowledge Bank. Today's Knowledge Bank is going to be hosted by Nick Regnier, founder of Cledor, and he is going to be speaking about crisis handling for residential blocks. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, please submit them via the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, and we will try to get through as many as possible at the end. The webinar is being recorded today and will be available to watch back via the News on the Block YouTube channel. I will also be able to provide a copy of the slides for anyone that would like them. I will now pass you over to Nick to begin the webinar. Good morning, Nick.
Good morning, Vicky. Thank you very much for inviting me to this webinar. And I welcome everyone who's present to this presentation. So my name is Nick Regnier, and I'll give you a quick introduction shortly. But today I'm going to talk about the expert crisis handling for residential properties. So bear with me, that's it. So first of all, I'd like to explain to you, my name is Nick Regnier. I'm the Managing Director of Cledor and founder of my company, which I set it up in August 2005. And prior to that, I would like to explain to you that studying for my degree, tourism and hospitality in the 1980s at one of the best lycées in France, set me down to the path of delivering exceptional customer care. So I specialize in hotel management in my final year, and practical work experience in high-end hotels and white glove restaurant revealed to me just how much hard work, dedication into providing outstanding service really takes place. In these high-end hotels, including Hyatt Regency London Churchill, which is the picture that you're seeing, it's a hotel located in central London in Portman Square. I specialize working as security manager, and I have also worked in other high-end hotels. But with this particular hotel, I collaborated working with overseas security services, looking after very important figures such as Michael Gorbachev, Hillary Clinton, George W. Bush, Ariel Town, Hamid Karzai, Princess of Saudi Arabia, and also looking after a number of celebrities such as Michael Jackson, Dolly Parton, Tom Jones, etc. So this gives you an idea that these important people that we had in a hotel, it was crucial that our hotel was working towards preventive security measures for the high-profile guests. So a lot of work had to be put in towards prevention. So we believe prevention is better than cure. Now, I just want to also highlight myself. I was a shy teenager in my younger age, and I have a profound hearing disability. I wear hearing aids. So this is a little piece I get into both of my ears, and I was born with this disability. And in my teenage years, I discovered a martial art called Aikido. And this martial art changed my life because it gave me the confidence I needed to have in order to face difficult situations. So I've been learning Aikido for 34 years, and I have been teaching this martial art also for the past 15 years. That gives you an understanding, the concept, exactly how I come about to talk about the crisis handling. Now, one thing I want to actually talk before we begin with the crisis handling, the risk assessment in the workplace is extremely important. It's paramount for all employers. It is our duty to make sure that on-site staff work in a safe environment, and that is the law. Now, we should also be thinking of all possible risks at your workplace. So I understand that managers will be thinking of all potential risks for the staff that could harm the health and safety of your employees, visitors, and contractors. One of the things that you'll be thinking of, obviously, the manual handling, working on heights, and you also be thinking of, loan workers, desk station, etc., cost, how you use the cleaning products and all that. But to me, these are normal sort of risk assessment. And I want to emphasize the crisis risk assessment, which I'll come to that. But it is really vital that you train your staff to be competent and able to handle such risk. I am going to give you something that you can write it down. It's a risk assessment that you can do on the spot. This risk assessment, called the POP method, is used by all security officers, police officers, armed forces, and it is something that we implemented straight away. So when you are learning, for example, conflict management and how you engage with a difficult situation, you apply the POP method. And P stands for person, O stands for object, P stands for place. So for example, to put it into context, if you're walking into a lobby area and you're seeing a number of people arguing, seem to be, sort of having a loud discussion, what may appear to be an argument unfolding, the first thing you'll be thinking of is looking at how many people there are. Is there anyone who appears to be intoxicated? Who's the most aggressive? How big are they? And how many of them are they? And objects, you'll be thinking of, is anyone carrying an object, or is there anything in the lobby area that may seem to be just innocent objects, such as a table, a chair, a vase, or anything? These potentially items could be used as potential weapons. And the last thing is place. And you should always be thinking about, when this area is taking place, where exactly is this happening? Is it under CCTV coverage? So if I intervene, will I be under CCTV coverage in that area? Is it well lit? Is it difficult to get access to? If I'm thinking of evacuating so-and-so, how difficult will it be? Or if my life becomes in danger, do I have an exit route? So these are the things that you've got to think about this. It allows you to do a risk assessment on the spot, as I explained. Now, the police force will use the POP method, but they use something else also. They use what I call the dynamic risk assessment. And the dynamic risk assessment stands for safer approach. Safer approach, the first thing they do is, police officers, they may be called into a specific situation in an area that is unfamiliar to them. So when they get into this area, they would first think about stepping back. Step back is a think of, before you jump in, what am I witnessing? What am I seeing? And then you go for the second one, A, for assess the threat. You assess the threat how? You use the POP method, people, object, places. And then the third one will be F for find help. Now, when you say find help, you may find that actually I need some backup. I'm outnumbered. And then the fourth one, E, stands for evaluate the options. Now, what I mean by evaluate the options, you might be saying, okay, I've got enough colleagues of mine, we can both, or 3 of us or 4 of us intervene, maybe just one of us will intervene, 3 will be in the background, and then R for respond. Now, when you respond, is either you actively respond or you do nothing. Do nothing is not necessarily that you are failing to respond. I'll give you an example. You see an argument taking place, security is called in, they go into the bar area or the gym area, and the people who are arguing amongst themselves are noticing presence of security. And then suddenly they are lowering their voice and they just want to kind of resolve the situation without security having to intervene. That is also a possibility. Now, this is one thing that you need to be aware of, because if we go back to the situation with the flow charts, the situation occurs. What is in purple is all the dynamic risk assessment that the police will be doing in any environment, which is something that members of staff can also use. Step back, assess the threat, find help, evaluate options, respond. So you may say no action is necessary because they have seen you and they have decided they're going to stop arguing, they're going to stop doing this, so there's no need to deal with anything. Either you respond, but you realize the matter is a bit more complicated and you haven't got the authority to make a decision, you will do what I call pass the baton. You will be asking for a manager to intervene. And then you reevaluate the threat. So these are the possibilities that you can actually do, which will help you for the emergency scenario situations. Now, 99% of time, the daily routine tasks are undertaken by your staff, on-site staff, and the visitors and the contractors and visiting your building. All daily tasks will be just normal, and so it is vital to train your staff for these tasks, but I also say it is extremely vital to train your members of staff to deal with a 1% emergency crisis, because if the crisis takes place, that 1% will be a very, very big decision maker. Your staff and your company will be heavily judged on. So it is vital to train them on properly. So preparing the 1% for your staff to deal with such situation can save lives. Now I would like to talk about the crisis handling with a fire emergency, something which is not in the list, but I'm quite happy to explain to you. A fire emergency, to me, I have had a lot of experience in hotels dealing with fire emergencies where we've had to evacuate our guests out of the hotel. I've had situations with fire emergencies in residential properties as well, where we've had to evacuate residents from a fire inside one of the units. And so it is a fairly stressful situation, but on the whole, what is really clear, when you have a fire emergency situation, you know where the fire is. So the threat is located. And that's one thing positive. What we need to identify and understand the 4 fire alarm activation. I'm talking about the total evacuation. There are 4 possible causes that could set the fire alarm into total evacuation. Number 1 is you've got a fire alarm activation and the member of staff is looking at the fire panel and they see a smoke detector activation on one of the guest floors, say 2nd floor. Usually, the fire panel will offer member of staff to investigate the fire alarm. And so when that happens, the member of staff will go to the floor and investigate the cause of the alarm. However, some systems may have a limited time frame to investigate the cause of the alarm. If that time frame has exceeded and the member of staff has not come back to the fire panel and silence and reset the panel, the fire panel will go onto what I call total evacuation mode. The fire panel will sound. Now, if you've got a stay-put policy in your building, you may not hear the audible alarm in the building. But if you have an older building where the total evacuation has to take place, the entire building will be audible. Everyone would hear they have to evacuate the building. The second possibility is that you have a smoke detector activation on one of the guest floors. Your member of staff investigates, but then within a minute, there's another smoke detector activation in the communal parts on a separate floor, completely unrelated to the first investigation the member of staff is carrying out. The fire panel has been programmed, 2 smoke detectors activate, there's got to be a fire in the building. So total evacuation alarm will activate. The third possibility is someone has pressed the fire break glass unit in the building. So break the glass and will then launch the building to total evacuation alarm. The fourth possibility is someone is at the fire panel and discovers that there is a fire and we need to evacuate everybody. They will engage and press the button total evacuation alarm. So these are the 4 possibilities that anybody should be aware of. Now, the next thing is how should the investigation be carried out? This is really important because essentially, if you have a fire on the 22nd floor and you would theoretically expect the member of staff to go all the way up the stairs and avoid using the lifts. You might be saying, when there's an evacuation activation engaging, the lift automatically grounds to the ground floor. It should. But if your building has a fireman's lift, they might override that lift and use the lift to go up to the 2nd floor. Theoretically, that lift should be used for the fire officers. But you need to really assess the risk because you might find that some members of staff are not fit to actually run up the stairs on the 22nd floor. It's going to be too much for them. So you need to really evaluate the risk, especially the night staff, because most of the fires will occur nighttime. In the past anyway, that's what we've learned. But if they are using the fireman's lift, they need to be trained. But what you need to be aware of, because it is a lift, mechanical problems can also happen. The problem using the lift is that when you get into the landing and the doors open, you don't know where the fire is on that floor. So this is really important to be aware of that. And you need to also train your staff. It's not just about saying, okay, there is a fire alarm activation Now, this is what I would expect you. You investigate, find out if the smoke detector has been activated. If you see a little bit of smoke, yeah, we might have to engage to a total evacuation, call the fire brigade, etc. But I want to go further than that. You could have a member of staff going onto the 4th floor, and then they see a real emergency situation unfolding. And I have seen it happen. And you have a unit, an apartment on fire, and you see a lot of black smoke coming out of the door, and you're hearing voices inside the apartment and people shouting, "Help, help, help, open the door, please." And that is the one thing I would like to ask your member of staff. What would they be doing in that second? Imagine if a member of staff has the emergency key and they are allowed, I mean, they're not allowed, sorry, they have the ability to unlock the door. You would want to ask them a question, because naturally your instinct says, I need to save that person. But is it the right step? Is it the right thing to do? So this is why doing role-play scenario situation really is important. And if a member of staff is not going to open the door, what would they be saying to the resident? Because if there's a fire on the 22nd floor and the member of staff is not informing the resident clearly what is going on, and they're not telling the the resident that fire brigade is on its way, will be there very shortly, you could potentially have a bigger problem. Some residents may panic and jump out of a building on the 22nd floor. That's a really possible scenario that may take place. So it is really important to reassure the residents and advise them to stay as low as possible, to get into a small room and close the doors. Help will be on its way. And the second thing is to evacuate all the nearby residents. And I would also say, if there's a fire on the 22nd floor, evacuate the residents who are on the 23rd floor above the flat, on the fire. Now, some new buildings would have a stay put policy, others with a total evacuation. Now, there's been a lot of debates and discussion about a stay put policy, especially when a matter has taken place and the residents were unhappy. A building had a number of issues. The vents failed to work and smoke was spreading across all the floors, and the residents panicked because they didn't hear any alarm whatsoever. They did not get anybody telling them to evacuate. Members of staff have got a limited time. The first priority is to inform the fire brigade. As soon as the fire brigade come in, then also before that, if they can evacuate the residents who are near the danger, near the fire, to evacuate, that was a good thing. But the residents who are 4th floor above may not feel that way. They may feel very upset about it. So it's really important to understand, can we evacuate the building? Is there a procedure? We need to sort of think about the possibilities. Do we just solely rely on stay put policy, or do we actually devise a plan for an evacuation in case we decide to not carry out the stay put policy? Now, role-play scenario, I would highly recommend them. Now, the next bit is I want to talk about the bomb threat, and it is a subject that I have faced working at the Hyatt. We had bomb threat situations because of special guests that we had, and it is very stressful. It's very difficult. Unlike a fire, when a fire alarm has been activated, the fire alarm will tell you the location. You know where the fire is happening. The bomb, you don't. You have no idea. So we need to understand, is your team prepared for such scenario? We need to devise a plan. Is your building managed by a team or a lone worker? If it's managed by a team, it may be a bit easier to handle the situation because more than one brain is better. We can all think. But it's not just that. You need to actually put yourself in a position before the matter actually takes place, before you have this bomb threat situation, especially when it is calm right now. It's a good idea to think about this possible scenario, especially if your building is located in a nearby building that I would say sensitive building. Now, I ask bomb threat checklist here. I put it in, and it's quite important. There's a form here, quite interesting. In 1995, myself and my security director, gentleman called Carl Stiers, who I am still a very, very good friend with, we actually created a bomb threat checklist because it was not invented before. And this bomb threat checklist, I'm just throwing you quickly. I'm going to read out a few things, but I want to say to you, if anyone is interested and would like to own this bomb threat checklist form, send me an email, nick@cledor.co.uk, and I will be happy to send you this form free of charge. I think it's important. Everyone should have this form. What does this form contain? It contains some ready-made questions. And the idea of it is you print it, you leave it next to a landline telephone. So if you've got different departments, have it next to a landline telephone. Because you could have a heightened level of threat. IRA, for example. Hopefully not. But if the situation level of threat increases and you get this information from the national government, it may be a good time to bring those forms out just in case, especially if your building is near vicinity within sensitive buildings, which I'll go through in a moment. But I want to read out some questions. This is what you will be asking. Where exactly is the bomb right now? When is it going to explode? What does it look like? What does the bomb contain? How will it be detonated? Now you'll be saying, hang on a minute. No one is ever going to answer the question. The idea of it is not so much about what they're going to be saying. It's that, but it's to also find out, are you speaking to somebody? Or is it someone playing an audio tape recording? So you know straight away, something is being played and it's not someone speaking. And the more you ask questions, the more you find out, perhaps you get a bit of a guess, you might discover nationality of a person. You might hear some background noise. On the second form, it's quite good because you have a few things here about a caller. Is he a male, female, nationality, age, threat language, well-spoken, irrational, tape, foul, incoherent, caller's voice, calm, crying, angry, excited, disguised, slow. Has he got an accent? Was the person stuttering? Was the person laughing? Anything. So you tick all the boxes and you have all this information, which the more time you spend with a person over the phone, the easier it becomes for the police to locate the where the call is coming from. Now, with the technology of today, there's also a possibility that you might be getting an email instead of a phone call. The third page of a bomb threat checklist relates to upon receiving a bomb threat email, and it will give you exactly what you need to do. Do not reply, do not forward, do not delete the message. So all of this, and then call 999, obviously. But this is really important to understand and have this thinking here. Do we start the building? If you are or not, if you have someone who's over the phone and tells you there's a bomb outside, it's about to explode, and please get the hell out of here, what do we do? Do we get out? Where? Is the bomb at the front of a building? Is it at the back of a building? Can we exit our residence? Or if you have a caller saying there's a bomb inside the building and you have 15 minutes, get the hell out of here. Is it really true? So you need to know this thing because it's really difficult. You might decide to actually, there's three things you might decide of. The first one is do nothing. You might think it's a hoax. You might be saying, hang on a minute, are you an expert to decide we're not doing anything? But if somebody says there's a bomb inside a building, get the hell out of here, and you've only got 15 minutes to evacuate, is it really true? Is the bomb really outside the building? It could be, because maybe the caller wants to get maximum casualties and encouraging people to get out towards the bomb device. That's a possibility as well. So you need to be thinking of these scenarios. And it's very, very complex, very difficult. You also need to unlock the fire evacuation. You've got one master point. With a bomb threat situation, you need to think of different exits. So you might decide to evacuate externally, have at least two possible exits. Maybe the front of a building, but further away, the back of a building. But you need to have members of staff who will be able to assess, is it safe to exit outside the building? Do you have a car park area? Is it monitored by security staff? Do you have a vehicle that is parked here that is not being recorded and looks a bit suspicious? And all those things need to be taken into account. You will be obviously calling the police, but the problem is when the police arrive, they don't know the building. They don't know the layout. This is not their workplace. It is your workplace. So you have to give as much information as possible. There's a third possibility. You might think of evacuating internally if you believe the threat is very real. Now, it could also be you have received information that there's bomb device within proximities 15, 20 meters away from the building. You might be thinking evacuate internally may be a good approach, providing you've got a shelter that will withstand the blast. Now, when I used to work at the Hyatt Regency London Churchill, the conference room was a bomb threat shelter. So we were able to evacuate internally all the guests into the conference room. But that takes enormous amount of power, manpower, a lot of staff to evacuate everyone in. So you can imagine it's very difficult. If you've only got one lone worker, it's something that's going to be quite hard to achieve. But if you've got a plan and you can basically inform the resident you have decided to evacuate everyone into the basement car park, it may be quite a good plan. So have a think about those things. It's possible, but the bomb threat is a very, very difficult situation to deal with. Terrorist attack unfolding nearby. That's also another sad situation that we're having to talk about it in 2023. This picture, I think everyone would know, it relates to London Bridge attack with a terrorist attacker. So we need to be, prepared for it. And we need to prepare ourselves, have a plan, how we can carry out a lockdown of your building. Now, when I say lockdown, it could be something very simple. Do you have a quick way to secure the front entrance of a building so no one can get in? But at the same time, you need to make sure the exit doors are also well secured, because you would not succeed doing a lockdown of your building. Now, the idea of a lockdown of your building is to prevent anyone from getting inside the building. And you would also have to assess the risk within your building and periphery. Is your building in a sensitive area? Say, for example, your building is located near the London Eye, and that's potentially a problem. Or Westminster, Parliament, that's also a potential problem. Or any government building or energy building, such as Shell. And these potential buildings could be presenting a risk to your residential building. So have a think about those plans. And you can also devise something where you can actually control the access and exit of your building, outdoor and indoor, but have a different eye. It's important to put yourself in the mind of the terrorist and see, can I get into my building very easily? Because what they will want to do is trying to escape at some point. That's exactly what has happened in London Bridge. They were walking around and so forth, but if they had managed to access into one of the residential properties, it would have been a bit of a problem and potentially a hostage situation. That's the sort of thing. At the same time, we have to be thinking very clearly, terrorists could be armed. Now, at the Hyatt Regency London Churchill, we devised a plan about that. And if there was a terrorist attack unfolding in the lobby area, we would be aware that there will be loss of lives, inevitable. But there are some quick actions that we can make it very difficult. You can lock down the building, ground all the lifts will not be operating. You can make the fire exit doors accessing the floors very difficult to get into. Eventually, when you press the lockdown button at the Hyatt Regency London Churchill, any guest staying in a hotel would suddenly get a televised screen on, and they will be informed that there's a terrorist unfolding in the building. For their safety, these are the measures they need to do. Silence your phone, lock your door, put your mattress against the door and hide. And these are the things that you have to think about the potential scenario. We need to also think about how we can safeguard our staff lives and the residents. So if you've got a plan, you can actually do something to safeguard residents' lives and potentially save many, many more lives. The next thing I want to talk about, you might think it's not such a crisis handling, but I think it's important to understand the purpose of CCTV and the use of CCTV, because in many buildings I have seen in the past, many residential properties not always up to scratch with the CCTV. And sometimes staff members are misusing the use of CCTV. So we need to really understand very clearly the purpose of CCTV should be for the detection and prevention of crime and for the safety of the members of the public. It's not something that you should be using it to check on your member of staff if he or she is working. There is a Data Protection Act in 2018, which is an update from the Data Protection Act 1998. And obviously, you've got the GDPR that was introduced in May 2018. You need to also be aware of the correct procedures with collecting evidence and good documentation. You need to follow all this. You need to understand and differentiate who is a data manager, who is a data controller. Now, I say the data manager is someone who has the authority to release images to a third party, police force, for example, or anyone that the data manager has given authority for the data controller to release the images. So in other words, your concierge, your porter, they may be authorized to use the CCTV, but they are not allowed to share the CCTV images to any third party. They're not allowed to also invite someone, their friend or anybody, to view the CCTV itself. And it is important to do everything we can to keep the CCTV just private. So access or visibility cannot be achieved by residents, for example, or visitors or contractors. And sometimes you may find the layout of a building makes it impossible, but there are ways you can make the visibility a little bit harder. So that's important to do that. Has the CCTV presence been notified to the ICO, the Information Commissioner Office? It's important because if you don't do it, you potentially may be liable for a fine. Now, the idea of the Information Commissioner Office is for them to be aware if there is a terrorist attack unfolding in your area. They have a full record for the secret services, for the police, for a specific department to investigate and visit your building, and they may want to ask to review the CCTV. What they may even ask is to take the hard drive out of your CCTV equipment so they can have a look at the incident. The CCTV signage visible at all in every single access and exit point. You will see a sign, CCTV recording, and you need to explain exactly the reason for the detection and prevention of crime and for the protection of members of the public. And information can also be reached on this contact telephone number for the data manager. I think it's important, or data controller. But incorrect procedures and breaches will face some sort of consequences. Now, what is the Data Protection Act 2018? Just giving you a quick sum up. If your building uses CCTV, you must share the details with the ICO and pay a data protection fee. You must tell people that they may be recording display signs and they must be clearly visible and readable. You must control who can see the recordings. So you designate a data controller. It could be a team of concierge, team of security, designate who will be the data manager. Data manager could be a property management manager, a block manager, estate manager, someone who is going to be in charge of your building. As I said, it should not be used to monitor your on-site staff. Now, your CCTV should be recording within the boundaries of your property. Sometimes it's inevitable, it records, the street or the road. That's okay, but you need to show the intention is within the boundaries that you want to do the recording of your premises. You also need to be aware from the Data Protection Act 2018, any members of the public, i.e. myself, I can walk past the building and I can go to the building itself and I can ask for a footage of myself to see what is being recorded, and I should be able to get footage free of charge within 1 calendar month. You might think it's a bit odd, but this is what it says. Access can be provided, but you would have to make sure if there's any third party walking next to me, faces as much. Everything must be covered so you're not revealing identities of any third party persons. Now, here is a picture of two suspicious characters, and they were opportunists thieves walking into a lobby area of a hotel, which was called the Mayfair Intercontinental Hotel. And these guys were up to no good. Now, when you have a CCTV image like this, it's important if you bring evidence, you must make sure you bring the evidence as a still that confirms the date, the time, and the specific name of the area that camera is recording. And theoretically, if you're doing any tampering, you need to provide the original image as well as the tampering image. When I mean tampering image is, say the image was a bit too dark and you make it a bit brighter, because technically speaking, you are starting to edit the image, and that could be a potential problem. You're playing with the evidence. So you need to make sure you always retain the original and you then attach an improved image of the individual. But at the same time, if you are providing CCTV images, you can't just sort of crop and just have those two faces. That would not be admissible in the court of law because they would not know when it happened. It will be evidence rejected in the court of law very quickly. Now, what do criminals want? We need to understand that, because this is when you are putting yourself in their mind. Quite simply, they just want to access your building unnoticed, unchallenged by staff or members of the public, and to remain undetected by CCTV equipment while carrying out their illegal activities. And if they remain unchallenged and they succeeded stealing, taking anything, they will carry on again. They will know that this building is easy to attack, easy to get in, easy to get away with their crimes. So we need to make sure we cover these areas, and we need to be aware if all CCTV cameras are covering all the weak spots possible. The next subject is something that I actually wanted to discuss, the lift entrapment. It happens occasionally, and it's not a nice experience. Anyone who's been stuck inside a lift, it can be quite, upsetting. And if it's hot weather, makes it even worse. But we need to manage this very, very clearly. We need to make sure that your members of staff are trained on how to deal with anyone trapped in a lift. Because you may find some people panic, they become claustrophobic, they don't like being stuck in a lift. Now, you need to understand also, training must be provided and with clear procedures. So I would advise that you do a standard operational procedure, a manual that I also call a Bible. You put things in writing about what to do in that likelihood of this scenario situation. And you need to make sure the member of staff is well aware. You may find that member of staff has a key to unlock the lift and can open the doors. But is it really safe to do this? So you will need to really make sure they're fully trained on how to deal with such scenario situation. We need to give them all the information so that the staff member or anyone working on duty, if they have the authority to call the lift engineer out of emergency, it could be late in the evening. And we need to think about those things. Or if there's a problem with the emergency lift engineer, have they got the authority to call the fire brigade? Now, you may say, well, they would have to call the fire brigade. The point I'm asking this is because sometimes if the fire brigade are being called to intervene quite often, they may get very annoyed and they will charge a fee for doing this. So we've got to think about that. I also provided servicing to one of the residential properties where you only provide day concierge in that building, and they have a lift. And the day concierge works from 7 in the morning to 7 p.m. And when the concierge finish, the lobby area is not, there is nobody dealing with any possible entrapment. And I thought that was a bit strange because I was thinking, hang on a minute, if this happens, and they may say, okay, somebody is stuck inside the lift, they'll press the panic button and it will automatically call the lift engineer. Fine. However, is the lift engineer going to be able to access the building? Have they got a key to get into the main entrance? Have we thought about that? And what about if no one from the bazaar is responding, if no one is helping this poor resident stuck inside the lift? So I put a system that was very simple. We put a key safe outside the building in an area very clear with 6-digit codes and a master key for the lift engineer to get in out of emergency if there was an emergency taking place after 7 p.m. And that resolved the situation very, very quickly. So you've got to be thinking about those things as well. Do staff have access to lift keys? Yes. If so, should they release the door to any free trapped person? Personally, I would not advise anyone, any members of staff to do that because they're not trained engineers. They don't know how the lift works. The last thing you would want is you open the door and trying to rescue someone and the lift now drops floor below. It'll be catastrophic. So you need to have correct procedures with excellent communication. Reassure the trapped person. Speak to them frequently and calmly and assure them that help is on its way, which is quite important. So I mentioned the last one is out of hours and risk to evaluate. So it's important to think about, put yourself, step away. I call have a helicopter view of a building. But sometimes when it's so involved, we don't think about those things. Step away and have a helicopter view. And have I covered all this? And if so, great. If not, let's have a think about it. Loss of power. This is quite important because some people think, oh, well, you know, if you've got a loss of electricity, it will be temporary. Interestingly enough, a few years ago, we were providing services in a building called Marconi House at the Strand. We had a team of concierge. I don't know if you remember down in Holborn, there was a famous robbery where you had professional thieves who accessed a safe and to steal diamonds. And what they've done to disable the electronic safe, they were in a sub-basement and they cut out the cables, which cut the entire electricity in the in Holborn area and the Strand. So the building did not have electricity for several hours. And it was very, very dark. Now, you may have some emergency lighting, that's great, but you need to be aware of this situation. What we had, it was a good thing that we had fluorescent sticks, and you put them into the corridors, and then the residents feel reassured that members of staff are there. Have some torch, battery torch, and also understand, if there is an emergency where there's no power, how long will the fire alarm run through the emergency power source? How many hours? That's something to think about. Potential entrapment inside the gas lift. That's a possibility. We need to be facing this. Landline telephone may not work. Mobile phones should work, but sometimes they may fail. So how do we communicate with all the residents? Is a power loss to your building or the whole should affect it? What emergency contingency is in place? So you might say, but it's not a lot we can do. We're going to have to ask the residents to stay in their units, and we might offer some additional, fluorescent stick for the residents if need be, and just help out. Some people suggested we can give them candles. Well, theoretically, yes, but a potential risk of spreading fire. So we don't really want to get into that. But if they've got a mobile phone, they probably use the torch from the mobile phone. So thankfully, we've got the technology nowadays to do that. Now, car park gate. That's an interesting thing as well, because some buildings may obviously need to be operated with electricity power. But if it needs to be operated manually, some car park gates are very, very difficult to open manually. You need 2 people, 3 people maybe to operate it. Theoretically, they shouldn't be difficult. But if it is an old car park gate and it's hard to open it, what do we do? Do we leave it closed or do we leave it open? So we have to think about that. Maybe personally, I would say probably leaving it open to let people out of a building, maybe a possibility, but you may be thinking it's a potential risk. Someone can get into the building, yes, but you have to evaluate the risk. You would have to see exactly where your building is located to decide. Gas leak. Now, it's very uncommon, but unfortunately, I mean, we need to train your staff, members of staff to, handle such emergency. Gas leaks could happen to all the buildings. They still have gas, individual supplies to each flat or communal boiler supplies. We staff know what a gas leak smells like. That's another thing that we need to really be thinking. Is there an emergency plan against that? Turn off the gas supplies, open windows and doors, leave a property, and phone the national gas emergency number on 999 and follow the advice given. But do not turn on or off electrical switches or use an electrical devices. So this is really, quite a quick sum up on that. But the right action could save lives, save money, and mitigate to prevent building damage. Water leaks is something that has happened quite a few times in my experience working at Cledor, in some residential properties. I'm surprised sometimes that members of staff don't always know what to do and how to handle such emergency, especially night staff. And the worst thing is when you have an agency staff covering a shift on last minute help. It's important to train the staff on how to deal with that. So you need to actually show the plan of the building and is it accessible to staff? And you need to think about isolating. So if you've got one unit that is leaking, you can isolate the valve to isolate the unit. Or if it's several properties on the same floor, isolate the valve for the entire floor so there's no water provided in any other units. Or you isolate the entire building, no one gets water. Because what I see often is there's a water leak in the property and a member of staff has called for a plumber, but it's still leaking whilst the plumber is on its way. So we need to mitigate that and isolate as quickly as possible so that we can actually mitigate the damage to other properties. Now, domestic violence. That's something we don't actually discuss a lot, but I do a number of role-play scenario situations with this one because I refer to noise complaint. And people tend to think noise complaint, yes, it could be a unit, a flat, having a party, playing loud music, and it's just a standard operation. We're going to go and ask the resident to be quieter, to please lower the noise. It's after 10:30, 11. Noise needs to be lower to respect other residents. But that could be just a normal procedure. But think outside the box. What about if it's an argument taking place between a couple? And you suddenly realize there's a lot of shouting going on. It's nothing to do with playing music. Your gut feeling tells you, oh no, something is much worse than I thought. Now, situations like this are difficult to, deal with because most of us are thinking domestic violence, men may be beating their female partner. But it's also the other way around. We need to be aware of that. And what do you do when you knock on the door and the person opens the door ever so slightly and you see nose bleeding, black eye, and the person is saying, I'm so sorry, I apologize, it won't happen again, we will be stopping, I'm really sorry for the disturbance. What do you do? So you then have to assess the situation very rapidly. Do you go back downstairs and tell your colleagues, there's been just an argument, let's leave it at that, let's just say it will settle on its own? Or do you call the police and advise them of what has happened? Remember, that's the last one that you should be doing because the police will be trained on how to deal with the situation. The last thing you want is your member of staff to have not acted when they should have acted. Because if your member of staff think that the couple were okay, they had an argument, but they said they stopped, nothing more gonna happen, but something sad has taken place way afterwards, and we're dealing with death on the premises. That's a possibility. We need to be thinking about the worst case scenario. And if ever the family discovers that the deceased person spoke to a member of staff prior to their death, and they discover that your member of staff did not act at the time, you could be liable. And they could actually press charge for not assisting someone who was clearly in danger. So we need to really carry out training to allow staff to make mistakes. It's okay if they think that's the right way to do, give them the real picture. And then all of a sudden they realize, oh dear, I didn't think of that. Yes, you're right. So misconception that domestic violence is carried out by men, we need to be thinking of a bigger picture. So the right decision may save someone's life. And I would also say, if you witness something like this, call the police. Death at the premises, unfortunately, it's not a nice thing. And I have had a few situations like this, unfortunately, in hotels and in residential properties. And it is traumatic because no one should be seeing such things. And it is very difficult. But first thing you would need to do is dial 999, ask for the police and ambulance to attend. Now, if your member of staff is a first aider, would they administer first aid assistance? Patient must be alive, even though heart is not beating. We don't know that. But would they be brave enough to do first aid, CPR, resuscitation? We can't force the staff to do that. And the fact that they've seen something fairly traumatic, if they call 999 and inform the ambulance, that's okay. But if they want to also carry out CPR and assist the person, that's okay as well. However, you need to look for signs. You need to stay calm and objective, analyze the situation very carefully. And you will be using what the police would do, the safer approach. Step back. First of all, you see someone who's not responding, is on the floor. Is it safe for me to walk in this room? That's the first analysis you should be doing. Because the last thing you would want is you become the next casualty. Maybe the person has been electrocuted and the floor is wet and you approach the person and you become the second victim. So that's important to understand that. Or do you see any signs, concussion, or something that the person been hit onto the head, or a sign of wound onto their body? That would indicate the person has been attacked. Then this area becomes a crime scene. So we need to be very aware of that. So it changes everything. Any evidence that you see a forced entry break-in, the police should be informed. And you need to preserve the area as a crime scene. And then when the police attend, the member of staff need to inform what they've done, what they've touched, where they walk, because there will be forensic experts who will be carrying out a full check to see exactly who was in this room at that time. It's very important to do that. Make notes of what you found, what happened, what you may have touched, and pass information calmly to the emergency services. One thing I would say as well, do you know if emergency services, ambulance crew, have they got the authority to declare someone dead? No, most of them don't. Only a certified doctor will do that. So what the ambulance crew will do, they'll often carry out the CPR, do whatever is necessary, and bring the deceased body into the ambulance, take the deceased body to the hospital, carry out the CPR, and then wait, get doctors to actually look at the person, and that the doctor will make the decision if a person has a chance to be saved or not. You need to be aware that such thing can also bring mental health problems to your staff member, PTSD, post-traumatic syndrome disorder. And you need to be having a plan to offer counseling. And this is quite important because often people may say, no, so I don't need counseling, it's okay. But that's okay. But if you ever need counseling, please let me know. We can arrange this, let the staff know that you are caring for them. I've always said before, prevention is better than cure. It's very important to think before this disaster takes place. What can you do to minimize that from happening? And when you have a matter that has taken place or unfolded, look at how it happened. What have we done? Is there anything we could have done better? Was there anything that didn't work in our procedure? But we can change the SOP manual and then tailor-make it so that it works better for the second time. It's really important because when you train your staff, they become more confident, they become more empowered, and then they become massive difference for the residents because the residents will feel better protected and the staff will feel more valued. So instigate a proactive mindset with on-site staff, mindset of preparing for the worst case scenario. Hopefully, that worst case scenario never has to happen. I don't want anyone to face that 1% crisis, but we have to be realistic. That 1% crisis could happen. So build the SOP crisis handling manual for each building so staff can access the manual to refresh their memories, make it available for them. Thank you. Any questions, anyone?
Hi, Nick. There's no questions yet. I'm just giving it a moment, see if anyone submits any.
It's probably just a 5 minutes opportunity window.
Yeah, sure. See if anything
No
comes
questions.
up.
So maybe that was a very good webinar, giving a lot of information.
Yeah,
What I
that's
think is
normally a
really
good
difficult.
sign.
Yeah, I think it's difficult to really be concrete on exactly what step you have to do because each building will be different.
Yeah,
The location of a building, the height of a building, where it's located, and so forth. And you have to think of a plan where you can tailor make it that will be suitable for the building. So you got an SOP manual for that building, the SOP manual for the other building will differ slightly and sometimes differ a lot more.
Oh, there is one question that's just come up.
Okay.
Do you offer e-learning training for
Yes.
on-site staff?
Yes, we do. We do. We have over 38 e-learning training sessions that we provide for any staff members, and we've been very successful at doing this. And this e-learning training session is a program giving you 20 minutes to 30 minutes, and at the end of that session, the candidate will then undertake an assessment, and then they have to pass 80% of the questions right. So if they fail the first time, not a problem. They just have to go through again and again until they pass. But there are training sessions that I provide, which is not e-learning. Training sessions that I provide is conflict management, physical intervention, and anything that is relating to the safety overall. I can help the team of estate managers, on-site staff, and sometimes I have been asked to do that because of my expertise from my previous past experience. And myself, I think working for a high-end hotel has allowed me to really see the bigger picture, and we need to implement that mindset to all the residential properties because it's worthwhile. Every building is just looks identical, but they deserve to be protected. Every building deserves that.
Yeah, absolutely. There's one more question. Do you provide permanent placements as well as temporary cover, mainly concierge?
We do provide permanent placement, and we are, very hands-on. We assist a number of our clients with a permanent placement regularly. And what we do is we don't want to waste our clients by submitting just a series of who we think will be all right. We do actually our preliminary interviews. First of all, we assess the members of staff, the candidate, and look for the suitability for the role. And if they're not suitable, we don't want to waste the client for this, but we'll only present the best of the best. The client will make a decision. So what happens is the client decides to do an interview with them directly, they can do it. But if they want us to be involved with them, we can assist. So we can do a face-to-face meeting, or we can do an online interview meeting, which has been fantastic, just like what we're doing now. That was the adaptation we've had to find quickly with COVID-19. So Zoom has exponentially exploded and really sort of changed our vision of things, how we do. It's all about adapting. Use the technology to your advantage.
Yeah, 100%. There's only one other question, someone asking for a copy of the slides. So yes, if Nick can send them to me, I will send out a copy of the slides to everyone with the recording later today.
Absolutely, that's fine, absolutely. And I just want to remind anyone, if you want the checklist, bomb threat checklist, I'm more than happy to email it to you because I think it's really important. I didn't want to present it as a separate slide because I didn't want to be coming out of my PowerPoint presentation for that. But happy to send it to you, and I think it's a fantastic form. The police actually praised us for putting it in place. They said, brilliant, we've never seen this before. It's absolutely fantastic. And we also devised a very good thing, if I may say, is when we approach any unknown people, any unknown visitors, or anyone who appear to be lost, or anyone that you think they're not, they don't belong here, when we approach them, and that's how we used to do in hotels, we approach them by asking a question, how may I help you? And that takes you aback because you're not expecting security to be so polite. If you are looking for something or you're lost, you'll be genuinely surprised and you'll be happy that security approach you, not in a rude manner. But if you're a criminal with wrong intents, you'll be thinking, oh, what do I do? Exit answer. What is my exit answer? And you be giving away your body language, something would not be quite right. And I could sense that by just having a quick conversation. Something is off with this individual. Doesn't belong here. So he knows, I know. And the more he speaks, I can identify where it's coming from. And these people will say, oh, gosh, he found me. I can't come back here. Because as I said, criminals want to get into the building unchallenged. So if you security challenge them in the right way, being polite, they can't be, a complaint. They can't receive a complaint of that sort. The security was a bit too heavily handed against the individual.
Yeah, that sounds really smart.
It is, and it works. The police loved it, and they actually, when they revised the bomb threat situation, because there's been an updated program with the SIA security, they use that phrase, how may I help you? They want all security to say, how may I help you? So they stole our phrase.
Okay, we haven't got no more questions. So thanks, Nick, for your time today. That was brilliant.
Thank you.
I will have a copy of the slides and the recording for anyone that wants them, so I'll be able to send that out to you all later. Otherwise, thank you very much for joining us, and I hope you enjoyed the webinar.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.